There we go. Good evening. Welcome to episode 32 of Jeremy Makes Stuff. This episode is called Drinking Water with Tiger. Tiger, how you doing?
Good, I'm doing good.
We've got a couple of different
Got
meanings
our
to
water.
the episode title. All right, drinking some actual water. Also, we're talking about some interesting stuff. But first, I had a couple questions for you,
Okay.
Tiger. And for anybody watching or listening, I've kind of got the setup over here to the side. Main focus tonight is going to be Tiger, so, don't worry about me if I'm doing something crazy, but let us know how the audio sounds and all that stuff, and we can make adjustments as we need. But I had a question. I was thinking about it today. This is the third episode that you've collaborated with me on.
Yes, one at my place and the other one here.
Yeah, episode 12, where we assembled the 3D printers.
Yeah,
Our
one
3D
of
printer
my
build
favorites.
party. Episode 23. No, I'm sorry, episode 17.
Okay.
Where we did the signs
On the
for the
Shiboko.
Christmas presents. Yep,
Mhm.
the Shipoko. And now episode 32. At first I thought, it was 12, 22, 32. But not quite. I was like, that would have been kind of funny. But I was thinking, though, how long have we known each other?
I'm guessing almost 3 years.
Is it almost 3?
Yeah.
Because I know the Humble Makers just had the 2-year anniversary at April 1st.
Right. And we were at the Proto Makerspace for about a year together, I
And
think.
there was a gap between there, right? About 6 months?
Well, I was there before you,
Yeah.
and then I wasn't there as much once you got there. But yeah, we knew we met
Yeah, it's
in
been
the
about
printer
3
room
years. About 3 years.
and talked about growing up in the spring and things like that.
Right.
I think we both went to the same high school for a little bit, maybe.
I went to Humble High School.
Okay, I went to Spring.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Close.
Close.
Our schools probably played each other in
They definitely
sports or
did.
something.
Still do.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Not the same time, though, when I was there and you were there. Little gap there. We didn't really talk too much the other 2 times about backgrounds.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit. Your background in the corporate world and the scholastic academia.
Yeah.
A
Sure.
little bit.
So it kind of goes back. I guess it'd be when I got my first computer, and that would be around like 1981. And I had an Atari 400 that I bought with money that I saved up for my paper route, because I used to deliver the Houston Chronicle, and I had an old Honda motorcycle that had the saddlebags on the side. So I would deliver them in Timberlane subdivision, and I don't know if I ever got to North Spring or not, but Timberlane subdivision and throwing them off the back of my motorcycle. But before I had the motorcycle, my mom would drive me around in the station wagon, and I had them piled up in a pyramid on top with the roof rack retaining them. And I would sit on top, and she would drive real slow through the neighborhoods, and I'd tell her to turn left or slow down, and I would throw them from sitting on top of the car.
Did you ever tell her speed up?
No. So then I got my first computer, and it was the less expensive of the 2 models that was out, but I probably spent more than the expensive model by upgrading it, because it only had like 16K of RAM when I got it up to 48, and it had a membrane keyboard, which is all the rage now for stuff because they're waterproof, whatever. But I installed a keyboard, and then I think the main storage unit was like a cassette tape drive, so
Oh, yeah.
serial drive, and I bought Indus GT floppy drive for anybody who's a computer guy from the 80s. 'Cause I think they made it for the Commodores. Also, really fancy little red LEDs. Will show you which track it was on out of the 40, so it made it look like it was going kind of cool. And then I got into PCs when they first came out. I was using VisiCalc, which was the first spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been on spreadsheets since the beginning. I used DBase 3, so I've been exposed to databases especially since the beginning. So I was there when PCs were making their exposure to the world. So computers really weren't in high school yet. Someone had brought in like an Apple II, and showed us some stuff on it because I was taking radio and TV repair around 1980. So then that's when the first PCs came out. It was before turbo. So I think, again, if I remember my numbers right, it was like 4.77 hertz or megahertz maybe. And then you could get a turbo, and I think it would run at 8 megahertz. The standard hard drives were, I think, 5 megabytes on an MFM controller. But you get an RLL, which encoded the data differently, so it could fit more in the same amount of space. So if you had a 5 megabyte, you could get 8 megabytes approximate storage on it. It was like, those were the days, and people were happy with 300 baud modems, and then they made their way up. So I've been in the PC since everything started, so I remember those days.
So how did that influence you?
I wanted to
all that?
kind of get into that field. But when I left high school, my goal was I wanted to be a fashion photographer because I was just going to be around beautiful women all the time. What better job could you have? But that didn't pan out. So I took my first computer course in college, learned to program in BASIC because that was like the only thing really around at the time for normal people. I guess other people were learning COBOL and assembly language and things like that. So that, and then learning the office type, well, not now we call them office apps, but the business type apps like the spreadsheets and the databases, that was all natural to me. And you still meet people today who don't realize that social security number is not a number, phone number is not a number. They don't know the difference between a number, which has mathematical value, and a numeric character. And so people didn't always understand that kind of thing. But that was a natural for me, so I kind of understood that. And, different bases, base 2, base 8, So I did a little bit of programming, did a lot of spreadsheet work in the early days. So then I kind of wanted to get into computers, but kind of just kept it as a good hobby. And then I enjoyed the sciences. I had good science teachers in high school. So when I got to college, I enjoyed that, and I ended up getting a bachelor's in biology / specialization in microbiology, because most of my courses were microbiology, not that many biology. I can understand how processes work, but I can't memorize a list of things. So like when you had to dissect a cat, you had to memorize all the parts. I could tell you how a muscle worked. I could tell you, how breathing and everything worked, but I just can't remember all those pieces. So inside a microscope, all those guys only have like 8 organelles. So okay, there's the nucleus, there's the mitochondria, that kind of thing, vacuole. So I could do that. That was no big deal. So
8 parts
exploring
of
and hunting and and I got to work with the electron microscope at Texas A&M, but at that time it was probably like a $500,000 machine, and still used film because nowadays everything's like digital. But that was exciting to me to get to use that kind of equipment. So I worked. That was the first time I dropped out on a PhD. I've dropped out on a master's. I've gone to grad school a few times and just never been motivated enough to finish. So while I was learning sciences, I always had jobs that were always computer related, and I always could make a living with computer stuff with the skills I had learned. So I never really pursued going beyond that. I was, good enough to learn set up networking. I got sent to like Novell Network Administrator when that first came out, for the company I was at, and helped set up the network and understand the rights and the directories and the structure and that kind of stuff. So the computers have always been in the background, have always supported me, but then the science, and then then the science has got more and more instrumentation in there, and so I was always natural then learn to use that. So a lot of times in movies and stuff, you'll see the chromatograph where someone will have a printout and they have like a little mountain type picture on it, and they go, oh, it's got boron so and so in it, and that's how we know that's whatever. So I learned to operate those kind of machines, and that was exciting to me. It's like, oh, I know how to do that now. And the precision of using little tools that get you fractions of a millimeter and that kind of stuff, I could handle that. So it's always in my background has kind of been a mix. I'd always had dreamed of working in like a big office building. Got lucky and got to do that by the Galleria, like up on
Nice.
the 20th floor, being an IT guy. So I got a lot of the experiences I wanted. But then I was driving home from a job like that from Houston up to the north side, Magnolia area, and there was a billboard with a little sad looking little girl, probably elementary school age girl, big eyes, said, "Will you be my teacher?" And it was about alternative certification, and it had a phone number, and I guess I wrote it down or looked it up or something like that. And as if for people, if you already have a degree, they have accelerated programs where you take a bunch of teaching courses on Saturdays, stuff like that, and then you can be a certified teacher as long as you pass all your tests and that kind of thing. And so I went that route.
How old were you around this time?
39, 38. I'd done a lot of international IT work because I was working for companies that were electrical product distributors, like a division of GE called GE Supply and a division of Westinghouse, stuff like that. And so I was doing international projects where something big was being built, and so they would set up a temporary store like out of a trailer, and so you had all that inventory down there, and somehow you had to track what's coming in and out and bill the customer and that kind of thing. And they would get real sophisticated because they didn't want people stealing. So if some contractor came in, he'd have to tell them, "Oh, it's for this drawing number, section this, whatever." So the customer would want one of these customized reports back, so they could also tell, "Oh, we've used 80% of the conduit, and according to our project goals, whatever, we should be here." And they could, it was useful for their meetings. And so I was real good at making all the reports and bills and that kind of stuff from the databases. And then 9/11 happened. And I was actually on a plane on 9/11, headed to Brazil. That's a story for another episode. But then our company kind of just squashed doing international work, and so that knocked me out of my position because I was mainly supporting international projects. And so the next thing I found was like a help desk kind of computer support thing, and that drove me crazy. It paid decent at the time. I think I was making like $45,000 to sit at my desk and wait for the phone to ring, so someone could tell me their mouse goes up and down, but it won't go left and right. And I would give them a hard time by eating crackers at their desk because they got stuff in the mouse ball. And that was basically it. I had to go clean the mouse ball out, whatever. Or, I changed my password. I didn't write it down. I went to lunch. I forgot what it was. Can you reset it for me? And those were like the highlights of my day. And since it was corporate, the user's not allowed to move the equipment around. So it would be on the right side of the desk, and they're sitting at this angle. And now they want it over there, but they're not allowed to do that. So they have to schedule for me to come when it's convenient for them, when they're at lunch, whatever. And I'd have to unplug everything and move it over and plug everything back in and make sure everything booted back up. Then after a week, oh, my neck hurts because I've always been looking this way. And then you have to move it back. And like I said, that just wasn't really satisfying to me. And I was the second IT guy because it's corporate again. So after 150 users, you have to have another IT guy. I was IT guy number 2, and everybody knew Todd's extension. Everybody called Todd. Nobody called me. When 20 new computers came in, then Todd would share work. But Todd was not going to give me any of his work. So, like I said, it was just sitting there a lot doing nothing. And like I said, I'm lazy, but I'm not that lazy. So switching to teaching was a really good thing. Every day is different. Every day is a challenge kind of thing. I've switched, taught at 3 different schools, taught, different levels, taught basically from 7th grade to 12th graders. It's just been a good experience. So,
and is it all science classes, or have you taught other stuff?
I've done strictly science, yeah.
So, like, what subjects, though, specifically?
In the junior highs, they actually just call it 7th grade science and 8th grade science because it's multidisciplinary.
Right.
So you do some biology, you do some chemistry, you do some physics and things like that. So then I've taught IPC, which was integrated physics and chemistry, which sounds fancy, but it's what everybody else knows as physical science. So it's basically half of your intro to chemistry and half of your intro to basic physics, Newton's laws, simple machines, things like that, which was a common freshman course. And then taught chemistry and pre-AP chemistry And now, for the last 5 years, I've been teaching Earth and Space Science.
Earth and space.
Yeah.
That's everything. Earth and space.
It pretty much. I start with the Big Bang. I mean, that's like the first. Well, I might teach them something about the metric system at the beginning, talk about scale, whatever, so that way they can appreciate the numbers involved in the Big Bang. But yeah, the first real lesson is about the Big Bang, and then we move on to kind of do all the astronomy till the Earth gets created, and then now we could talk about, okay, what's happened since Earth has been created. And that's how we use up the rest of the year. So
Interesting.
it is. It actually is. And what's cool is I'm in a good position in that I'm kind of the only one that really teaches it.
Oh, yeah.
There's other people who have to teach 1 or 2 sessions of it, but they just do whatever I do. So I get to decide what's done. So like 2 weeks ago, our whole lesson for the week was things that happened the week before. So it was I think it was the one after Easter, so we didn't have school on that Monday, so it was a short 4-day week. So Tuesday we learned about all the flooding that had happened in Rio, because my kids don't watch the news, so they don't know this big catastrophe happened. So Tuesday they had to put together this little thing where they researched the flooding in Rio, and they saw some footage, stuff like that. Then that same week, so our Wednesday, there was a massive typhoon that flooded most of Mozambique, like a whole country. And of course they don't know anything about Mozambique or where it's at or that kind of stuff. So the Wednesday they had to do this little project about Mozambique, compare it to the worst floods in history, and what is a typhoon, and how is it different than a cyclone and a hurricane, and answer those kind of questions so they're a bit more well-rounded. But there was also, then that Thursday they had to do the black hole image that just came out. So we watched the documentary that was made prior to it coming out, and on Friday we watched the documentary, a short one, after it came out. But now they knew everybody in that little show because they'd seen them all and what they were doing and what's involved in making the big telescope and that kind of stuff. It's not one scope; it's the Earth.
Right, the multiple around.
Exactly.
Creating the one
so,
image.
Yeah, so I could just all of a sudden redesign a whole week to make it, relevant and current. And a lot of teachers don't have that freedom, So it's one of the things I enjoy about mine.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I want to check in with the comments here real fast. I saw we've got Stingers watching tonight, and he sent some emojis. And Ken said, "Hey guys, how's it going?"
Ken, we're gone. I like to see us. Do I touch it?
No, it's still running.
Okay. I'll look over there now and then. I'm going to step out for just a second.
Okay.
I drank too much water.
When you do, go to the right.
Okay.
There you go. So, let me shift this around a little bit here. So, yeah, we've got a couple different camera views here tonight. A couple different things going on. Like I said, the episode is called Drinking Water with Tiger. We're not just going to, tell old stories and drink water. There's a secondary meaning to the episode title. It's still good water, though. But we'll get to that here in a sec. If anybody has any questions for Tiger, he was talking about his history with the computers and the IT world and switching to teaching. If you have any questions, send them in the chat. I'm sure we can answer if you have any questions or science questions,
Yeah, I can do some science questions. I know a little bit. And I'm good at making up stuff on the fly.
That I can vouch for sure.
So part of my, because it'll lead into the rice thing, is I've been very lucky as a teacher in that I apply to things and I actually get them. A lot of teachers don't apply, and a lot of teachers don't get them because things are competitive. And I guess I'm good at writing my little essays or having a good background, or I just seem like a nice guy. So I've been lucky enough to also you could be in a supportive district. So I've been to Anaheim, California for like a teaching conference kind of thing, and a big national conference. Get to go to little workshops and stuff, and been to Atlanta, Georgia, to a similar type conference. Been to Fort Worth, Texas on a similar type conference. I got selected after participating through Relief International, which is supported by the U.S. State Department, who generally does relief stuff like put tents in camps where countries are having issues and that kind of thing and support people. But they have a thing where they were teaching English or helping schools in like 6 really, third world low income countries. They would set up little computer labs, so that way those kids, because you always hear about the technology gap. We always want to worry about that. Well, that also exists in countries like in the stands, like Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, things like that. So for a school year, I'd been with what they called Schools Online. So I had a partner school on the other side of the world. And literally, if you put like a finger on Texas on a globe and stick your finger on what you think would be the opposite side of the globe, within an inch or two is Tajikistan. It's really on the other side of the world from us. So I had a partner teacher over there, and then every month they would give us like a lesson, either on foods or culture or clothing or whatever. And it was our job for our students to put together like presentations, and then we'd send them to each other. So their kids could learn about Americans on that topic, and we could learn about them on that topic. And then there was like forums or little discussion boards where the kids could then ask questions after they've seen them, get answers and chat with each other and that kind of stuff. So that was really cool. So anybody who participated in that, and this is countries like Tajikistan and Bangladesh and might have been Pakistan. There was just countries a lot of people don't even think about going to, kind of thing.
Sure.
Because it's just, there's a lot of poverty and not a lot of toilets and things like that. I got to go to Tajikistan with 2 other American teachers for about 2.5 weeks. We visited like 11 different schools, and they did presentations for us. We did presentations for them. On the weekdays, we got to stay in people's homes instead of hotels or motels or whatever, which was just the most phenomenal. This is like a National Geographic adventure, because we're just after you go to the schools and you just you're going to a world's largest earthen dam, or you're seeing the people who are still harvesting crops by hand, carrying all their dishes to the end of the road where there's just a pipe with just water coming out, just spewing out. So that's how they wash their stuff.
And you're staying
people
with
buying
them and eating
petrol
the
by
food.
a jar at a time.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you got the local foods and the bazaars and the markets. And since Tajikistan was one of the Caucasus, so they were under Russia, or they were Russia till the Soviet Union broke up. So then, like at the little flea markets, whatever, there's all this cool old Russian stuff, that you just don't see in the U.S. because they were our enemy at the time,
Right.
So I got to buy cool little Olympic medals and, an old military hat. It was exciting to me, And then to be in schools and to get to ask like the teachers and stuff. So, what did they used to tell you about Americans when it was Russia?
Oh,
And ask that kind of stuff and see all this stuff with like their space program and all the cosmonauts, but you don't see anything about us going to the moon or like that. That was part of their science, so you don't know how is that taught and that kind of thing.
Huh. Interesting.
But yeah, it was very interesting, and the kids were just so proud of themselves. Like when we wanted to show off their English, and they didn't matter what grade it was. If a teacher asked a question, everybody's hand went up because they wanted to be the ones to to answer the question and show what they knew. But since it was Russia, everything was at least 25 years old. The school was shared by like all it was like elementary school in the morning, middle school in the afternoon, high school or midday, high school like in the afternoons. The chalkboards were like polished. They had been used and erased so many times. I couldn't write on it. I didn't know how to hold the chalk just right. It would just slide. It was just like tough. And the principal would open up a little cabinet in his office to show you the books the school had.
Oh, all the books the school
books
had.
were like one cabinet that the school had. So it's just a totally different perspective.
Goodness. Yeah.
You learned all the teachers all had some kind of side job, selling vegetables or tutoring or whatever, because they were making the equivalent of like $27 a month, U.S. dollars. So it was, it really was an eye-opening, heart-touching experience. And I've stayed in touch with my partner teacher over the years. I've actually been to visit him twice because he's in the States going to grad school. He's been lucky enough I think he was even a Rhodes Scholar. So
Oh,
yeah, he
nice.
got his master's here, and he's currently working on his PhD. So I've been sent there. Then I started applying. I've been to like the McDonald Observatory and done stuff with the scopes, and got workshop stuff at least 3 different times there. And Fort Davis, that area up in Texas, is just amazing. Then I've also done stuff with U of H, and then the one I've done the most with is Rice University. My 3rd year teaching, I got a long background. My 3rd year teaching, I got involved with something called the Model Lab, in that HSD had partnered with Rice, and they looked at the 2 most failed courses for freshmen, because if you fail, you're on a different track in life.
Right.
So if they can get you back, that's important. And they were Algebra 1, the first real math course, and then IPC, the first real science course at high school. And so there was a group of 4 of us, and we had our own separate little office than our normal teachers. And we had a university professor who was with us, and we taught like every other day. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then Tuesday and Thursday, we were basically like in grad school with the professor, and she'd give us assignments, or we'd evaluate or lesson plan out loud so she could observe what we were doing and how we approach things. We'd visit other schools. So I've sat in more teachers' classrooms than any normal teacher has. And I've been, all kinds of professional development. So it's hard for me to go somewhere now and get training that's for everybody that I haven't already had.
Sure.
So that's my big thing that I gripe with a lot of my supervisors. Is like a training for everybody is for everybody but me, because I've already done it, So sometimes I get in trouble because now I'm the bored kid who,
Right.
because I kind of know everything. But then so I did that for like a whole year. It was a great program. Then when you participate with something in Rice, then there's always like summer opportunities where you can like work in a lab, because a lot of teachers who teach science don't have actual science experience. They went to college, took their science courses, and then they
Got their
start
teaching
teaching.
degree and
So they
start
don't have
teaching,
any
yeah.
science experience. And I'd been a microbiologist for a short time after I got my degree, so I had some science background and some science experience, and have used equipment and that kind of thing. So they have the opportunities for teachers to do research and get involved in projects, things like that, and then make a little bit of extra money for the summer. And Rice is big on nanotechnology. Again, I've met 2 Nobel Prize winners. Sat and ate at a table this size, ate lunch or dinner with one of them. Sandwiches and just talking about things. So again, opportunities most teachers don't have and don't take advantage of, or get that kind of lucky. So I've done 2 different ones that were to expose you to nano and what's going on, so you have activities and you can teach it better to your students. I've done one on statistics. I've done a biology related one. It's just, and then so when you do those during the semester, or I've done one on chemistry, a new approach to teaching chemistry. But whenever you do those during the semester, they always offer you like summer opportunities too, and so it's just been great for me. Like I said, I'm always finding something to kind of recharge me, 'cause
And since you get involved in these, and then I guess you get on some list, and they're like, oh, well, we know that if something comes up,
he shows up every time.
these people will be interested.
And he contributes,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I have the right people who are still there. There's people who still know me at Rice, and when there's conferences or other little things or events, I cross paths with again some of these higher up people. So that's always been good for me too.
So tell me how, or what drew you to this particular program now, the one that.
I needed to do something again to recharge me, because the other thing is you're working with maybe a good word might just be like-minded individuals, teachers who also want to bring something extra or improve their teaching or learn something new or whatever. So I think because I'm on the list, get emails about opportunities for teachers at Rice. And so I saw this one and confirmed with the wife, hey, is it cool? Because it's this many weeks, it'll be one night a week, Tuesday nights. We good? We were good. I applied and luckily I got in.
How many weeks was it?
Middle of January through April. So 10 weeks,
Yeah,
something
10
like
or
that.
12, something like that.
It is equivalent to a normal college course length because you could get it for credit if you wanted to.
Okay. Well, I think we've, been coy enough with the title of this episode, Drinking Water with Tiger. What exactly was this particular program?
Sure. So this one,
Here, let me switch the stuff.
because they always use the little acronym names, NEAT. And so NEWT stood for Nanotechnology Enabled Water Treatment. Because what happens is with the big universities, when they get the grants from like the National Science Foundation to do research and fun stuff like that, there's always like an outreach component where they got to do something with teachers or children or whatever. So they'll set up courses where it's sponsored. So I get to do this for free. I actually get paid a little bit of money if I showed up for the whole thing. If I didn't miss more than 2 courses, whatever. I guess it's no secret because it'd be on my taxes and people could call out. So I got $600 if I did it all. But I had to pay for my own gas to get down to Rice. They do feed you, but I'm a picky eater, so sometimes, I still had to spend money on food.
Sure.
I had a negative experience with the parking thing that one night. So it was like $12. I could have got refunded, but I said, nah, it's okay. So I'll get $588. That's still good for me.
Minus food and gas, yeah. So nanotechnology enabled water
Right.
treatment.
So the nanotechnology was part of it because they developed nanotechnology there with the buckyballs and a lot of other little components. So what they want to do now is, okay, we know how to make nanoparticles. What can we do with them? What kind of applications? They're, I guess, like in phase 2. So there's a component that tries to work with water treatment stuff because you want to think, okay, who has trouble getting good drinking water? Well, you're going to say, okay, all of Africa, and you're going to start to think about third world countries. But you got people in the Appalachians, you got Detroit, or Dearborn, whatever it was, all the water's real bad. You got all these places now that have, supposedly because of the fracking, the water's flammable or whatever. So drinking water is not always available for everywhere. Maybe there's droughts or there's just different things that happen. So the other issue is there may be water, but if up in the mountains in the Andes or in Peru or Kenya, how far does the water have to get how far do they have to go to get it and then bring it back to the house or village, whatever? And then most of the time that's women and girls. So girls don't get a fair education. So if you can help alleviate that problem on moving water, then you're also helping out children. And so there were 2 aspects: is moving water or making drinkable water. And so they've done some stuff where they'll take instead of just saying like solar powered in the traditional way where solar cells are converting to electricity, they got this stuff called carbon black, which is kind of very similar to like toner, but a little bit more finer. That the stuff will just really absorb sunlight, and so they can make like a thin film of it, and then like run water over it, and have that out in the sun, and it gets so hot it basically sterilizes the water. And they keep it in a little container so it really doesn't boil it, or sometimes they may be boiling it too, but they can. Get a plastic thing, run water so it takes a long time to go through it. You run it through a little pattern, whatever, and it just heats it up in places with just, like I said,
it
sunlight.
kills the bacteria.
Right, because the heating
kind of
will clean a lot of stuff. Certain other little particles, they'll help they'll kind of catalyze reactions so that, again, stuff will get taken out. They got issues where there's like too much fluoride in the water. And so it starts displacing calcium. So kids start getting all these weird bone deformities. Their bones just get weak, so they all start curving and stuff like that. So again, it's basically a chemical reaction to get the fluorine back out or to some acceptable water levels. So we had a group of about 16 teachers here at Rice, and then there's probably about 4 or 5 at Arizona State University. There's a little partnership thing, and so we would do webcast kind of things where there might be a guest speaker that's presented to both places, and we can all ask questions and that kind of stuff. So we were broken into little groups, about 4, and every group had a different problem they were trying to solve. And so some related to were water movement. Our specific one was we had to do something related to natural disaster water, which is, a sensitive or a very applicable topic here in Houston because of Harvey. And we also learned about the whole engineering process and the problem solving process. So like our design, which you'll see I'll fire on one in a minute, that's like version 3 or 4 kind of thing. So, how do you approach a problem? How do you simplify it?
So as you're iterating through the different...
Right. And that was fun and learning for me. And it's a skill they're trying to teach us because it's a skill that I know your average high school student does not get. And if they're not getting it, it's also the kids before that, because kids aren't doing science fair anymore. And when it was science fair, parents did half of it. So kids aren't getting that problem solving kind of skill in a lot of courses. And so the group I had was, we'll go over their names and schools in a minute, but basically you had 3 guys and a girl, and I just like to say we had 3 alphas and a girl. And so I was the fastest thinker, and so like when it came up to design, I had like the first design idea. So everybody's okay, because there wasn't nothing wrong with the idea as was proposed. Then the next time we get together, alpha number 2 had been thinking about it, so he had to redesign it. And it's like, well, okay, there's nothing wrong with his idea, so we all had to just kind of agree on that. Then the next time, number 2 was absent, so number 3 was, well, I was thinking about this, and what about if we do, just like almost like a redesign. It's like, well, yeah, that one works too. It's not that the other ones, previous ones didn't work, but that one works too. And since it's the latest, not necessarily the best or the better, but it's the latest one, you just got to say yes because you don't want anybody to say no to your stuff, kind of thing. And so it's funny how ours got down, but then also we were learning stuff. So like initially, ours, we were natural disaster, and when we had to like simplify it, because you got to figure out, okay, what kind of dirty water are you getting and how's it coming in? And so we said, okay, a lot of times what happens is the water plants or the water treatment plants get flooded, or they lost power or whatever, so they're not working right. So you always get this thing about boil your water. Boil your water before you use it. So we were going to assume you're in a house, you still got electricity probably, you got water coming in, but it's the boil your water stuff, so you know it's not clean. And so that's the water we were going to treat. But like when we had our initial thing, we're assuming, maybe you don't have electricity. So we'll have a version of it where you can plug in. Then we'll also make it so that you can add a solar cell to it. And we also made it so you could find some kind of crank or whatever. So we were worried about supplying electricity, and it's like, no, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to clean water.
Oh, yeah.
That could be someone else's problem to solve. So you learn that kind of thinking thing. No, what is the problem?
Yeah, focusing
you can
on...
get all kinds of solutions. Yeah, but focus it and work on
Focus
that.
on the task you've
Right.
been given.
So
for the problem
if we can
solving.
switch to
Yep.
we're on this view? Okay. So like I said, I was the first one to, boom, come up with something. And that's the other thing is communicating through drawings, stuff like that. A lot of students don't get that skill. And they give us like lots of lab activities to do that we could do with our kids, but we get the experience of doing them first. So my initial idea was, okay, the ubiquitous 5-gallon Home Depot bucket, the ever popular orange bucket. So we would base it around that because that's something everybody could kind of visualize. And so you would have 2 buckets. That's what these are supposed to represent. Your dirty water and your clean water. And then your pump cleaner type system, which we hadn't designed that part. We just knew we had to clean it there.
At this point, it's a black
Right.
box.
And it would be based on this little frame, kind of like a moving dolly with the 4 little wheels. So that way you could store it in your garage. It would be easy to move around the house if you needed to. So it would be on the wheels. But when you wanted to put it away, if we designed it right, the two buckets would fit in each other, and then the whole pump would fit inside that, and it would be on that little cart, and it could be in a corner of your garage kind of thing. And then I noticed my notes, it said also fit on typical bass boat or john boat. So at some point there must have been discussion, okay, so maybe there's a bunch of these, and FEMA has to go out and deliver them or something like that once you refine it. So we knew we wanted to kind of keep it to that size. So that was like the initial design without any kind of mechanics. So then we started talking about, okay, well, with our two buckets, we'll have a tube that connects them and have a filter in the middle. And we think about these little micron filters. And then it's like, well, we'll put one by the sink and one by the ground, let gravity do the work. So it was like revision number 2. And then someone took out that filter, and we're going to do some kind of filtering inside. And then next thing you know, we're just down to one bucket, and it just kept evolving to the one we came up with.
Yeah, through the different iterations, and with everybody is giving, shared input. Right.
And trimming it down. And because they'd give us a decent budget, like it was like $150. And basically, if it was on Amazon or Home Depot, you could, tell the teacher what to order for you, and she would order it for you.
So was and I don't want to skip ahead here, but was the end goal, like you said, storing in the garage, something that, like, it's a prepackaged thing you could buy at, like, Walmart, and you've got it in the garage ready for a disaster, or something you have to put together yourself?
We try to use components that were, in theory, easily available. And you could pre-build it if you're a prep type person, or, the design could be revised into something more specific by the next generation of people who are going to, continue this project, or, like I said, if there's going to be a FEMA thing or whatever. But basically, we're down to like a one bucket kind of thing, or one bucket plus kind of design. So the other groups had different things, like I said, moving water. Some were cleaning a different type. One was trying to do that fluoride problem, how to remove the fluoride. And one other one, we're just watching them just constantly building and doing, and they had some kind of solar tracking. It was just like, oh my God. The guy one of their members knew how to do like sketch, Fusion 360. Mm-hmm. So he had all these fancy CAD drawings. And it was just like, wow. And he just, he was the one alpha, and just so everybody did whatever he said, and, a lot of teaching is females. I think I heard it's like 65% of the teachers in the U.S. are female, whatever. And so our group was more than 50% female. And so a lot of females also don't have experience with tools or power tools. So that was interesting for them to get that experience. And we're ordering parts, fittings and tubings and things like that. And a lot of people don't have experience with that. And so there was one group who ordered like a hose connector and brass or whatever it was. They were going to put on their like Home Depot buckets, their popular type buckets.
Right.
And it was very similar to like what you would put on, looked like the one on your garden hose. So it was that size, and that thread. But then they had this hard plastic tubing that was very stiff. That probably had like
smaller diameter.
Right. Well, it was like a half inch, and it was like, they had no way to really connect it to that, because it wasn't going to stretch, because it was this hard, thick black plastic. And so I even helped out that group by 3D printing a fitting, custom fitting for them, one that went down into the tube, but then had their garden hose connector on it, and I just kind of combined two different things I'd found on Thingiverse and printed them up. I asked them how many they need in their design, because I made one, and said, will this work? And they said, yeah. And I said, how many design? We need 2 more. So no, how many do you need total? Because I'm going to give you one extra, because you're going to break one.
Right.
It's a matter of fact. You're going to break one. That's the way it works. So if you need 2 more, we're going to make you 3. And so yeah, I made those for them. Then like in our design, I got to design some 3D printed pieces to make our design a little bit fit better to what we visualized, or compensate for a mistake in ordering kind of thing. And then I even got to use my CNC to make some little wood parts to incorporate into it. So for me, I got to use some of the skills that were specific to me, and then I was satisfied. Okay, I've done my major contribution.
Yeah.
So if someone, because we had to do some micro work to determine if our stuff is working. It's like, well, I've been a microbiologist. I don't have to touch that. I've already done that kind of stuff in my life. And so they want to do that. That's fine. I'm okay. You know, I've contributed here and there, whatever. So let's get the
I say, do you want to look at the actual piece or?
Yeah. So does this fit up here? All right. Let me get this out of the way. And the day that I got my engineering notebook. Does it show? Yeah.
Yeah.
Rice gave those to us. It's like, I'm going to treasure this for a long time because it's just graph paper, but it's an engineering
nice.
notebook.
Engineering notebook, yeah.
So this is
further up.
let's see, most of it, you know. So we have the top of the bucket, and then there's a spigot over here. Dirty goes in, clean comes out.
Lean the top forward so we can see what's going on here.
Okay, did I get it? All right.
Yep.
So I'm going to take it apart a little bit.
Okay. So like you said, you started originally, it was 2 buckets. One got the dirty water, one got the clean water.
So we're assuming the water coming in from your faucet's going to be dirty. All right. So the first problem we had to solve was we decided to break it in 2 stages. The water's dirty, and even when you boil water, you're just killing stuff. You're not removing anything. So if there's any little sand or particles or whatever, nothing cleans it. So we decided to go with a carbon type filter, and when you look at it online, that's the view you get. And so I figured, okay, there must be a hole in the top. That's where my finger's going in. And it must be closed at the bottom, so that way stuff will come out.
Right, the water goes in, it would come out.
But it's not, or the one we ordered, because we got a deal on it so you can see through it. That was the first problem we had. Okay, we thought in our mind it was closed. It wasn't closed. So I designed a piece that would fit just right and then close it off. So this one in purple is press fit on there, and it's a real pain in the butt to take it off because I learned how to use calipers and I can print exactly to a size.
Yeah.
You know, so this is like perfectly designed to it and does not leak. So that was great. And then when we first the other problem we had is, so this is like 2 1/4 or something diameter. So this is 3-inch PVC because we'd have something that this would fit in. So this was the next size up, 3-inch PVC. And if I just cut a 3-inch hole in the bucket, it would be wobbly.
Right.
And so I cut 2 squares on my CNC. I measured it, whatever it was, 2.9, whatever it was. I made exactly that size, and it sanded a little bit, and it had a sand to get to fit. But it's a friction fit, and it just does not move. I would hate to have to take this apart because I mean it's on there, it's squeaking, it's so tight.
Yeah.
And then we used the PVC cap, and we drilled the holes for the water to come out. So dirty water is going to go in the filter. Clean water is going to come out the side, or cleaner water is going to come out the side.
And then come out of the holes in the bottom.
Right. But then this was kind of too close and was going to hit the holes. So since I had the design, which kind of looked like this, which is the ring that fits around the filter, and then this to block the center better, I took off the wall and extended the center, and these are warped because they've been sitting in my truck for 2 weeks. But I used this upside down as a riser to get the filter off the bottom of this.
Oh, yeah.
So this is making contact on the inside right there, and then lifts the filter away so it's not going to get an issue with there.
It's not covering the holes or blocking.
So that would go in first, and it landed good. Then this will sit on top. So now you have to pour into that hole and not miss it. And we forget, somehow we didn't order the funnel that we expect. And so we're trying to figure out, do we want to order that funnel? What are, like a oil change funnel that's kind of long, And I said, you know what? I can put a cap on there.
Yeah, you've already got the design for the bottom.
I know the outside measurements, so let me make another cap, and it's threaded for an average water bottle or 2-liter bottle.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
So we had some extra ones to show for the demo purposes. So it's threaded on there, and then it fits on there. Now, while I've been letting it sit around, it got warped on one side, so it's a bit of a snug fit. But it's going to fit on there like so. And because it has the little guide the water doesn't come out till it's already inside.
Oh,
Right.
okay, yeah.
Now the first time we used the filter, it was really slow.
Oh, so
Well,
gravity.
what's happening is because the carbon isn't saturated yet. So we said, okay, well that's good because we can see, we put it in, we can watch when it goes down, and then know when to fill this back up. And also, okay, there's a 2 liter bottle. We want to put about 5 liters in there. We kind of have an idea how many times we filled this up, whatever. So this is real convenient because it stops you from missing, because that's an easier target to pour into. Fill up your whatever you're gonna do at the sink, bring your glass over and dump it down. So that worked out really good. And so then the filter was removing your solid matter. So that was getting rid of your particulates. So now you got to worry about that boil it part. And so inside, you can see what looks like an aquarium related device. And it's a recirculating pump. So it pulls water in, sends it through it, and then it comes back out. But inside here, is it showing?
Yeah, forward a little bit. There you go.
Inside here is a UV light. So we had found it on Amazon. The green killing machine. And it's a UV sterilizer. And so what it would do is recirculate the water 50 gallons per hour is how much the flow rate is. And so we determined that if the thing killed half, there's always this thing about the MD50 killing 50% of something, because then if you know how long that took, you can do extrapolations. So we said, okay, if it kills half of whatever it is, then the next time, then you're going to have 25% and so on. So after 7 passes, and it can do 50 gallons in an hour, 7 passes, we'd have less than 1%. I have to take a little water.
All right.
Again.
So you got the filter, and with the UV light, put in about 5 liters of water. I don't know the calculation of liters to gallons. I'm gonna look that up real fast here. How many liters in a gallon? So Google says there's 3.78 liters in a gallon. And so you were doing about 4 liters, which is about 1
Well,
gallon.
we didn't want to fill it up, so we said about half a bucket at a time. So about
Well,
2.5
that would be
gallons.
2.5 gallons, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're talking, it'll process 50 gallons an hour, and you're at 2.5 gallons, and you only needed to go through 7 times.
7 times will get you less than 1% left of living. So the next pass would definitely do it, and so that could be done in under 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's the idea. And then so that would kill all your bacteria if you let it run for an hour. If half hour is going to do it, an hour is going to just definitely do it.
Right.
So then we had our little spigot now to get out that water, but you still got dead bacteria, and you might have some ions and things that could affect the flavor.
Oh.
Okay, because you have to have a pleasant experience. Now, what am
Yeah,
I?
you're doing all this work, right? You might as well enjoy
Right.
the
So what we
taste.
call it, that was phase 2. So the last phase, we call it the polishing phase. I can just show you the box that was left over because someone said, "Well, can I have it?" Because we actually never used it, so it was clean and brand new. So one of our partners said, "Can I have it?" And so of course, again, we always said yes to each other.
Right.
So I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So we ordered a Brita pitcher, and because it's also really fine carbon, in theory, it was going to remove any of the stuff that caused the taste to be affected, and that's how we basically solved that problem. But then, so we made ours. It's really not that complex. Cut some holes, do some stuff. Like I said, everybody else got power tools and doing all kinds of crazy things. So we were like done and like looking at everybody else.
Now, hold on a second. You're saying not that complex, but there were still some 3D parts that were modeled and printed, and there's iterations on this. So it's not just like we blinked and we had a bucket and whatever.
Right. Because we simplified it, to clean the dirty part, kill the live part, remove pieces, and you got water. So the professor, because like I said, we were looking at everybody else. They still, you can't even tell what they're making yet because they're still doing stuff, and we're like, oh, it's done. Boom, 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 done.
So how many weeks early were you done?
Probably 3 before anybody else was done.
Okay.
Or done for theirs. But of course, the professor came over and asked us, does it work? We didn't know how to reply. It's like, well, I guess we got to figure out a way to test it. 'Cause that's really what it came down to. And so the big test was going to be then what's the bad stuff you don't want, and it's coliforms, which is stuff like your E. coli, which means in a simplified way of saying is you don't want poop stuff in your water.
Right.
Right? Nobody does. And so we had to find a way to test that, to kill that. And one of the other professors who was helping us out was able to get us some supplies.
Oh, okay.
So we had
this back.
these little guys.
Sorry, I flipped this around it.
That's okay.
There you go.
So this is for growing bacteria. And so you would lift this up, put a couple drops at the top, lay it down, then use like a little spreading device, and it would spread out on there. And I don't know if you'll be able to tell. There's little squares on the back. There you go. I saw a little glimpse of it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when you're looking at it from the other side, you can kind of see the squares. And one of the things they like to do is they'll tell you how many colonies per square centimeter, what's your average, so you can figure out how much is there. And with these, you're going to grow bacteria, but coliforms will pick up something that's in the red, I think, or react with it. And if you hit it with UV light, it would shine different. So we had that, and we also had another test tube type one where you add a drop to it and then incubate it and see what would happen. And if you had no bacteria, it's clear. But if you had bacteria, coliforms, or E. coli type stuff, it would turn yellow. But it also would fluoresce if you had questions about it. And so we were able to get some results. And so if we can figure out how to get to the poster,
Yeah,
I can
switch
go over to
this
those.
around here.
So before we get to the poster,
Okay.
that was one of the things I was very excited about. When you're doing real research, there's always opportunities to present your research at conferences where other scientists in your field are doing their research, and that's how everybody kind of gets everybody up to date on what's going on or what the latest findings are or whatever. And you get to have your name on the poster, that kind of thing. So it's a step down from being like published in submitting a work to being published. And poster presentation is like a big deal, and poster assembly. So this was like a big group project among the 4 of us on each add our little pieces to it. And so I'm gonna go walk over to the poster.
All right, I'm gonna switch the view here. And hang on a second, let me get me in the chat out of the way. All right.
So you see my finger?
Yeah.
Okay, and a little bit of me. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speak up a little bit to make sure we can hear you.
Okay, so again, we were the natural disasters. Carl added "Never Say Die." I don't know if that's a James Bond reference or what. And again, we always told each other, okay, whatever you want, that's fine. So yeah, I was at Rice, and again, sponsored by Newt and the National Science Foundation, helped fund the new program and gave the money specifically for us to use. So my teammates were Carl Boyd, who teaches at MacArthur Senior High School in Aldine, Karen Haddad, who teaches at Clear Springs High School, myself, who teaches at Klein Forest, and Oral Taylor, who teaches at Spring High School. So 3 of us were actually from this side of town, kinda. Poor Karen had to drive all the way up from Clear Creek. So your poster is kind of like an advanced science fair poster. You define the problem. We have an approach philosophy, so how we're going to think about the problem. Ours is specific to device components because we had some 3D stuff, so it made good imagery to add on to it, take up space. So got those in there. How it's being evaluated, so you discuss, your stuff. So we got some test results, which I'll talk about in a minute. The conclusion, then if always the what would be next. If you're going to continue this project or someone wants to take over after you, what would be next? We had some dead space, so a team photo got snuck on there. I think our professor did it because I never saw it in our designs. And then we thanked Dr. George Loyo, who's the one who helped us with the microbiology stuff, and our main professor, Katrina Crawford. And then there was a teacher who was like the assistant, Matthew Wells, who helped us out. And the National Science Foundation grant EEC 1449500 helped fund this. So up here we include a picture of like a water treatment plant that's flooded, and it may be like a Harvey one. But it talks about disasters like hurricanes, where your house might not be flooded, and unfortunately you were, for those people who don't know.
And the makerspace.
And the makerspace, yeah. But you might have issues procuring water for your household, and this could be due to the following: flooding or failure at the municipal water treatment, inadequate water stockpile prior to it, so you didn't have your gallons of water, so you're going to need water, or the inability to travel to water, because maybe you're landlocked because all the bridges are flooded, and the only thing coming in is that unclean water. So you have to figure out
flood
how to
water.
use it. Yeah. So we designed a water filtration system to provide potable water. Potable is a fancy way of saying drinkable. In the event of municipal water treatment facility being compromised, but it's still working at your house, German faucet, something's still coming out. So some of the issues we identified was that particulate matter in the water. So that's why we put the first filter in, to get rid of just the stuff that it could catch. Bacterial contamination, because now that it's not being treated anymore, prior to be going to you. Taste or smell issues, that's where the Brita came in to handle that. Portability, the bucket had a handle.
I love it.
And ease of component sourcing, Amazon, Home Depot for like everything, or we kind of made it ourselves. And speaking of making it ourselves, I just kind of showed how the 3D components were brought in to make a custom solution. Because again, the big one was that first bottom cap, because like I said, we ordered the filter, saw the side view, and I think I maybe looked at filters like pre-shopping, and I think the one we initially picked out might have been closed because it's for a different refrigerator. But then when we saw the 2 for $12 on Amazon, we changed it without like checking the specs on it. So yeah, but it's a refrigerator filter. Except most people probably have one if you have the water coming out. So that handled the bottom, that helped with the top. You can see here, if you can see this photo, he's pouring in. He got some water from like a creek or something, a pond by his high school, and you can see it has a nice golden color. That water, it's not supposed to have a nice golden color. But yeah, when he got to the bucket, it was white. So we'll skip over to the bacterial testing.
You mean the water was clear?
Yeah, it was clear when we got
okay.
there. Yeah. Well, white in a white bucket. So you're right. Yeah. So this is actually presenting a reverse of what really happened. So what we had done was we actually took samples. So this graph shows the bacteria that were showing up before it went through our filter. So it's a nice high line. Okay. Then after it went through the carbon, you still had bacteria show up. 30 minutes later, after going through our filter, nothing was noticeable.
Wow.
Nothing was there. Nothing after 60, of course, which means our
so
30 was
it's
true.
still dead and it's not
right,
growing.
And nothing after 90 minutes. Okay. So then we decided to see, okay, what is that window though in that 30? Because maybe it happens after 10 minutes. You don't know. So
yeah, and if you're in a
this is called
disaster,
test 2, this is really test 1. I'm letting y'all know behind the scenes the truth of what's happening. So then we said, okay, we need to do smaller increments. We're going to do it every 5 minutes. So again, we had the before, and it's the highest one. It shows that we did have dirty water. After filtering, 5 minutes after, almost no change. 10 minutes after is actually was higher, so I don't know if it's a fluke or just a measurement thing. Because again, you got humans kind of counting the colonies, whatever. 15 minutes, it dropped a little bit, and 20, so they're all still kind of there. So this shows that 25, 30 was actually where it happened, because after 20 minutes there was still stuff there. Okay. this picture kind of shows the test tubes, and if you can see a good view of it, you would notice that it goes from like a dark gold down to like a light yellow. So it is dying off, over the time. But again,
So those are the 5-minute increments there then?
yeah. And then these are showing that it is fluorescing, so it has a green with near a black light, and we could see that you had little colonies here that there was stuff in there.
And what did the fluorescence mean again?
That it was actually like E. coli or coliforms. You're gonna have bacteria, but there's a different family. The ones that we really don't like are the coliforms.
Right. The ones that really make you sick. Right. Yeah. Okay.
So that showed their presence. So here, the first two are yellow and immediately clear. So that's corroborating
Yeah.
this.
30, 60, 90.
Right. And on this one's hard to see. And again, if you got a good image of it, the very top of the water, especially, you can see a nice yellow ring. So it is fluorescing with the black light. And that's one of the things from like when we were doing one of our activities. They brought in these black light flashlights that they got on Amazon. I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm ordering me one of those because it's great now to have one. And then this is like that little test thing. And this is a 60-minute one. And like I said, there's nothing on this one. And again, we had done these kind of like 2 times. So it wasn't a technique thing or something like that. So yeah, when they said, does it work? We found out, yeah, it actually does. We're hoping it would. And
So once it was clean, did you drink it?
Nobody drank it. Yeah, because we didn't do the final part.
With the
Because
Brita
we
filter.
didn't know really what was in there. Otherwise, there may be some other. We did some other testing. There's test strips you can buy. They're just like called water test strips, and they'll test for different ions. Is there iron in there? Is there whatever? And so we had all that data too. And so some of it was going away, and some of it wasn't. And we didn't determine, okay, is it safe? We didn't know we didn't look up the safety levels on those. We just want to know, could we prove something was happening? Because when we do this the first time, you don't know what results you're going to get.
Right.
So you do a bunch of different kinds of tests to see if something's going to say, yes, it's working. And so once this kind of says it's working, we kind of didn't need that test anymore. And then that would have just been a bunch of little numbers for different things that wouldn't mean something to the average person.
Well, like you said, iron, etc. But you just proved that your system would
Right,
take the poop
nitrogen
out.
levels,
Right.
Different compounds, right. So we proved that it killed the bad guys. We weren't too worried about the other stuff, because the other stuff in theory is things that the British should have picked up. The little ions and stuff should have gone.
Oh, okay,
to the
yeah.
carbon, right. That's the magic thing about carbon. If you learned your chemistry in high school, carbon has 4 places to connect. So almost anybody can bind to a carbon. So carbon can connect to a lot of stuff. So if you have other stuff around and you expose to carbon, it'll a lot of times connect to the carbon. That's why we have the carbon filters. So we found that the UV basically sterilized it after 30 minutes. And the time, of course, is going to matter on how much water you put in there. So we didn't go and do advanced calculations. We just knew that it worked. And you could do a calculation to figure out, okay, for every 2 gallons, it needs 40 minutes or whatever. But then it would also kind of be based on how heavily contaminated the initial water is.
Sure.
So probably like 2 hours would always be fine. Because if you're producing 3 gallons every 2 hours, for a family of 4, you're getting enough water to get you through the day, kind of thing, without an issue. And that's for drinking water. You still have water, but you can still water your plants or do whatever with.
Cook with
That's
and
it, yeah.
everything else, yeah.
So yeah, the test kind of supported that our thing was working.
So next steps.
Next step. So we got the next step would be determine longevity of the system. How long does it work? We have no idea when you would need to change the filter. We decided, as standard protocol, okay, when this disaster is done, throw that filter away. No need to keep it because they're cheap enough, and you just put a new one in because who knows what's growing on it
Right.
the whole time. Because at that stage, you haven't killed anything. You just were removing stuff. So that's definitely a contaminated filter.
Yeah, and it wouldn't last as long as like in a refrigerator because that's already been through the
Right.
treatment plant,
So,
right?
yeah,
So
so-
yeah.
Right. So trash that filter and put a new one.
So definitely more than once every 3 months.
Yeah. Sample the same source, test it weekly. So again, we just did we did 2 different sources, 2 different times. So this water and that water from 2 different sources. So that's why it could also be a little bit different. This one could have been much more concentrated or something. Samples from the same source could be tested weekly for a month. Samples could be taken from other sources and multiple trials. So it'd be more the chemistry lab work on it to see what it's doing and kind of narrow it down. Then you could actually contaminate it with something specific. And
Right, to
verify
see how
that
well.
instead of just random stuff. Yeah. And so is the other thing, use alternate methods of detecting and remove potential chemical contaminants. So is the Brita going to be good enough, or should we check for something else in there? But yeah, that was our project. And so it was.
So that's
it was
that's
fun.
next steps, like if you're continuing this as a project.
Right.
Now, if this was actually going to like come to market or something, what do you think? I mean, would be the next steps? I mean, everybody can get a bucket. Everybody can get a 2-liter bottle. Everybody could download an STL, but it doesn't mean you can print it.
Right. Yeah, most likely the whole top part, because having to cut a big hole and put a piece of PVC in and figure out how to adhere it and stuff for leaks and things like that. So if that was like one thing, so if like Home Depot or whatever sold a top that already had everything in it besides the filter, then that would be like the next step, or design that so it's like one piece. So hey, you already got a 5-gallon bucket. Guess what? You can do that, But and so like there's might be an issue in that a Home Depot bucket is not a food safe bucket. So the inside is actually is too porous. It's going to be microscopically too rough that then stuff can get in there. That if you buy like a food safe one, which I don't know if it's twice the price or 5 times the price, it's going to be a lot smoother on the inside, so stuff won't stick to it, kind of thing. It won't adhere to it. So there could be those kind of upgrades to like improve the performance, so that like I said, they're not hanging out or whatever.
Interesting. Cool.
Makes you thirsty talking about water.
Yeah, drinking water. So, all right. So you're done with the current set of.
Yeah. So
classes
now, like all the activities and labs we did, we have access to all the files like online, so we could pull them in and modify them and do them with our kids and that kind of stuff. And they were so nice in that at our final class night, we all had our posters up, and all the principals were invited. I think 1 or 2 showed up, just kind of sad.
Yeah.
But then other Rice people came up, and there was like a grad student who kind of was like assigned to every group to kind of be a consultant and see if they needed any help or whatever. So those people, we had other people, and then spouses or significant others or close friends, whatever. Because you're allowed a +1. Sorry. It's a big drive. And, came and saw it, and we each, so there was like a 40-minute poster time, and so you had to man your poster for 10 minutes while people like circulated, because that's how if everybody went to one every 10 minutes, then they would see it. But then the professor could kind of keep walking around to make sure we all knew what we were talking about or whatever. And that was like our final grade, if you're going to get a grade on the course. And
So I assume you guys passed.
yeah, I got all 100s. I did good. Yeah, what was fun is also like when we would have guest speakers. These were people like from Harvard and Yale and different prominent people in the field, and they were just they're at home doing their webcasts, talking to us, or stayed late at the universities because Arizona's another hour difference, so,
Right.
and then someone at Harvard is an hour the other way, but yeah, it worked out real nice. We got to do that because we were there from 6 to 9, so you had a really good block of time, and a lot of times we would do 2 activities, and then if you do, so everybody who did it is qualified to apply for the summer experience, RET, research experience for teachers related to this. And then there, you'll like design a lesson also. And so we had teachers who had done this the year before and had done the summer, and they came and like presented their lessons, so we got to do those. But as our parting, we got a nice little plaque or one of those crystal things that's been laser engraved on the inside. So it had a buckyball in there, so it looked like I won a soccer trophy. They gave us a nice bag that had like one of everything that you needed to do a lab. So that way at least you could do it as a demonstration, or you would have it to know what to order or whatever. But yeah, so we got a nice little
So it's where you got your
gifts.
little test strip from.
No, this was specific to us. But when we did all the classroom activities, they always gave us stuff. And it's like one cool one, and I haven't done my part yet. So we had like the plastic storage boxes that kind of look like a shoebox. And so you would fill it up with dirt or something, you kind of put some different stuff in there. And then it had a piece of like 1-inch PVC. And it had 3 different holes, and so the PVC under each one, so like a well, simulating a well going down into the soil. And I think there might have been different lengths, I'm not sure. And then that was in the top of the box, and then by hand they'd cut those, and they'd cut these little grooves so you could rain stuff down and would go into the soil. And then they bought little pumps like you would put to convert your shampoo to a pump instead of just a pour pump.
Yeah.
So they had the standard, because that's the standard size, and it fits real nice over a 1-inch PVC. So you put you arraign your contaminants like maybe over here, and you could then sample your well and do water testing on it, and then see if I spilled stuff over here that was like iron heavy, and so I had like a little iron test. When does it show up down here? How many rains does it take, or whatever? If I'm going to rain a quart of water every time on each one, or whatever. So I had saw, like I said, they had gone through with a blade or whatever. I said, I think I can cut those on my CNC for you real easy if I find a way to hold the lid down. So I said, if you have an extra lid, give it to me. So I have the extra lid in my truck, and I've never designed that. It's one of those little, when are you going to take the little 10 minutes to do this? So sometime I'll do it, then I'll give it back to my professor and say, hey, I did this for you. Let me know when you need them for next year. We'll meet up, whatever. You can give me the stack of all the tops. I'll carve them all out for you and get them back to you. So that's one of my other ways to pay back and also remind them who I am and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So are you going to do the summer stuff?
This summer, no. I have done summers before, and I really enjoyed them.
Is the timing different on the summers? Because during the school year, one night.
Yeah, these are night, and those are like regular, like daytime summer jobs for. I don't know if it's 4 weeks, 4 to 7 weeks, depends on what the thing is for different places. So let's say 4 weeks on average. So it'd be like usually when summer school's going in like the first summer session, because a lot of some colleges have 2 summer sessions. And they reward you very nicely. I want to say Rice's for that 6 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it was. I want to say it's somewhere between $4,000 to $6,000 that you get for committing all your good summertime down there. But that's one of those things too. If you miss more than 2 days or whatever, they start docking big chunks of it. But I've had good experiences. But this summer I have a lot of travel planned, so I'll be passing on that and most other standard school learning opportunities. Yeah.
Do they project out the next, like what they're going to do next year? Or
yeah, I think if you go to the site to rice.edu/ or if you just go there and just look up teacher workshops.
Let me pull that up real quick. Search this. Yep, there we go. All right. Rice.edu.
Yeah,
Research?
search. No, go up to search feature and do teacher workshops. Let's see what we get. Because there's a little acronym I'm not thinking of right now.
There's all the AP and IB workshops. School science technology. so many of the.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, I know. Heather's gone down to some of the workshops before. Too.
Yeah, Rice is a big supporter for training teachers. Well, actually, RSTEM, that's it.
STEM.
Yeah, that's the acronym I can think of.
Okay.
They're safe.
Yeah,
I know.
I guess. Living on the edge here.
So they'll have stuff for high school students. They'll have stuff for teachers. They'll have stuff
And they all have
for
these
grad students who are
different
maybe
acronyms.
studying like education and science but don't have lab experience, so that they can get lab experience. There's all kinds of neat stuff going on.
STEM Fab and AMP and RET and REU, all the different.
But
So-
our STEM programs up there, if I drop down the list of things that's available.
Whoops.
Yeah.
So-
See, like I'm in the K through 12
K through 12.
teachers. Yeah. And then over here's the list of the things coming up that you can apply for.
Interesting. Oh, ConocoPhillips and Rice.
Yeah.
Elementary Model STEM Lab. That's cool.
Yeah, and so basically since I took a course, I got 45 hours of professional development hours. So that was the one I just did, the Newt.
Nano Environmental
Yeah.
Engineering for Teachers. Yeah, I see there 45 CPE hours. That's nice.
Yeah.
How many hours does your district require you to or is it the district or the
I
school?
want to say it's like 30 a year. And usually they force feed us about 18 right off the bat. So I always come out
But you
ahead.
can, yeah, take that out in one chunk
Yeah.
and that's cool. Neat. It looks like they're doing stuff with water there.
Yeah, I think that's the
Picture.
previous group to us.
Cool.
Yeah, I highly recommend all these programs at Rice.
Interesting. Well, thanks for hanging
You
out
bet.
and talking about drinking water and and
Yep.
hey, cheers.
Yeah, any
It-
questions in the chat? Yeah,
No,
maybe.
we were we had some people watching,
Okay.
but there was a few people chatting at the beginning, just saying hey. No
Good.
questions though. Cool. Well, appreciate you hanging out.
No problem. It was fun. It always is fun.
And, it's nice to mix things up. And you know, it's funny. My brother was in town back around Christmas time, I guess. And I was telling him, hey, I've got a couple episodes coming up. I could use a hand doing some stuff, which
Mhm.
was kind of a pun because I was working on 3D scanning a hand
Right,
at the
I
time,
remember.
right?
Yours?
And I was like, hey, do you want to be a guest? And, help me out and just hang out or whatever. And he was like, you mean I get to be Tiger? I was like, well, I guess. I mean, at that time, he'd been on 2 episodes,
Yeah.
right? It's like, well, I mean, I guess if that's how you want to think about it. I mean, for anybody, if you have an idea for an episode or want to talk about stuff, we can hang out one night. Nothing against Tiger, but other people can, come along if you want. If you have an episode idea, or just some kind of a certain topic or something. I mean, tonight we didn't really make something, but we were talking about the process that his group went through making stuff, right?
Yep. It's a skill. So, again, as a teacher, I know students aren't getting that experience enough, but it's a skill that works in real life. Because that's what engineers do. They design things to be made, or they solve problems. And if you ask most students, unless their dad told them you're going to be an engineer, most of them aren't going to answer, "Well, I want to be an engineer."
Yeah, and it's you used a lot of the same techniques and stuff we talked about in here too. I mean, with the 3D printing and the design and iterating and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff too. So I mean, there's entire programs about it, not just some guy hanging out on the internet.
Yeah.
3D printing stuff, and that's what's really interesting too about the 3D printing and CNC machine and how accessible the rapid prototyping has become. Because 5 years ago, this would have been much harder without being able to quickly
Yes. Yeah.
3D print
It
something
would-
together,
A lot
design
of duct tape or something.
Yeah,
Duct
And-
tape, super glue, and things like that.
an extra 2-liter bottle.
Mhm.
Yeah. So and it not only looks more professional than having to wrap something with extra layers of duct tape, but it also gives a different kind of sense of accomplishment too.
Yeah, even though I designed this stuff for us, when I was able to help out the other team, that was probably like the best feeling of like, hey, I made something and it works, but I made something and it works and it helps somebody else with no benefit to me. That was, to me, that was a really good feeling.
And I'm not sure if it was clear, but your different groups weren't in competition either.
No,
Everybody had their own
everybody was
goals,
solving their own problem, right?
and if there was some collaboration, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and actually, there probably wasn't enough interaction between the groups, so we could learn from them while they're doing their making, and then if one of us maybe knew something that could have helped them, we didn't know they needed to know that from us, unless you, like I said, we were lucky we kind of finished early, so we had more time to go around and look and see what people were doing, kind of stuff. But yeah, there's some really advanced stuff going on, but we just basically saw the finished product, at the poster session. But it's been interesting to see, and we have no idea what the people in Arizona did. Yeah, that's one of the little feedback things. Is like it'd be cool to interact more with them,
Did their groups have the same questions? So they had a team working. Oh, you don't even know what their topics were.
Don't know. I think there might have been an issue in that they didn't have a professor the way we did. I think I heard a rumor that they just had like a grad student who was helping out, kind of thing. So
Interesting. Cool. Well, any parting thoughts?
no, I'm ready to. Well, that's the thing now. Is now it's been made. It's like it's going to go into storage, kind of thing. Until we figure out a purpose for it.
Well, until you need it.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have the working prototype?
I don't know which is the dirty filter. So I guess I get a new filter. Yeah, I have everything but the Brita. So. But I'm not going to do that continued testing. But no, it was it was a good experience. It's just a cost of doing business kind of thing. So I'll find a purpose for as much of it as I can. And I may just have it in the classroom, and maybe the kids can go to the next phase or figure out something.
Maybe one of them
Or
will
one
drink
of
the
the other
water.
teachers, yeah. Because like when they gave us the little shoebox with the well contamination thing, and I knew another teacher who was doing an environmental science kind of thing about contaminated water. It's like, oh, you can have this because you'll use it before I ever will. Yeah, so I just like give it away. So I need to go through my box and see what I can help people out with.
Cool.
But yeah, it's a really nice setup, and I made a friend, Boyd. Because like I go by my last name professionally, so I call other people by their last name.
Right.
So
And MacArthur's
he's a
not
younger
that
teacher.
far.
He's not that far. He lives not that far from here. He's like a young, energetic version of me with hair, and like he wants to get a 3D printer, and I recommended the Ender 3.
Of course.
And like when you get it, if you need someone to help come build it, let me know.
I think I
Okay.
counted the other day after we did the build video, and including the additional printers we purchased. I think there's been 7 Ender 3s purchased over time that were influenced by us
Good.
in some form or fashion. He could be number 8.
Could be.
Cool. Well, if he does, let me know because I've got tons of filament.
Okay. Now I've been using mine at home rarely, but I've been using the one at school like every day. Having fun. This is that purple filament we've been printing. some Thanos type little things.
Nice.
And then I printed 3 little white, probably a little bit bigger than that, Captain America shields. And since I had blue and red dry erase markers, I was able to kind of color it in and hot glued it back into the back so it's up on my board. So, but a friend of mine had said this other teacher had told him, "Hey, you're friends with Moses, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You think you can get him to make me a Captain America shield?" It's like, so when he told me that, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I could do that right now. I could start one up." And so when I made the first one, I said, "Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and color it, and if it comes out good enough, I'll give it to him." But I messed up on one little spot. And I said, "Oh, I'm gonna keep that one for me. I'll give him a white one to let him make his own mistakes." So.
Does the dry erase ink come off of the plastic?
If you probably rub on it, it probably does. But I was able to get it to go on. Like, if I did multiple coats, it seemed like it would fill in more on the white filament. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
I've used the paint pens. They really make the layer lines stand out.
There was a little gap, I guess, between the circles
Mm-hmm.
that the one that was online that someone had painted, he had a nice little skinny black line in each one. So I tried to use a Sharpie, but because of the shape of the circle and the thickness of the Sharpie, it colored the sides of the
Right.
wall, but not the down in the center. But when I was trying to do it and rotate it, I looked away for just a second,
Oh,
a fraction of a second.
man.
And next thing I know, I wasn't in the groove. I was down into the red line. But I think I remembered that I read somewhere that Sharpie will remove, dry erase will remove Sharpie. Like if someone accidentally does it on a dry erase board, you can rub on it with the Sharpie and then both come off. Somehow they interact with each other and it just takes it with it. So I said, well, let me color with Sharpie in it. It kind of absorbed the black and just made the red a little bit darker. So I think, hey, but I kept that one for me.
Nice.
But yeah, it looks good from a distance. So, and then did the Thanos dab. That was cool. And then the guy found a Thanos truck, and it said it was too big for the Ender as was. So I did it 25%. So it came out like a Hot Wheel size.
Oh, cool.
And he goes, "Oh man, can you make it any bigger?" I said, "I'll split it with you. I'll make it 50%." You know, because it was 25%. Because I think his wheels kept falling off or something. And yeah, because it's like a one-piece print, and then it prints the 4 wheels. And
Did they like snap on or something?
yeah, well, all I do is I laid the wheel down on the table and then kind of push the little truck on it sideways. But I said, I think it's for display, not for play. But he's still, he's a kid. He wants to play with it.
Yeah.
So he kept knocking off the wheels. And so it was a funny scene. And I have a rolling chair that doesn't have a back on it. And so he looked like a Mission Impossible or Ant-Man or something like that. So he's laying on the chair on his belly, his arms and legs in the air, because he's rolling around trying to look for this little tiny purple wheel. Like someone looking for the contacts, but he was like floating around looking for it. I was entertained.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks again for hanging out. And, hopefully
Have you tried your Yorkshire grit yet?
I've not.
It's amazing. It makes stuff darker.
Yeah.
So I got some white maple that made it a dark. It's a pretty color, but it's really nice. And so I don't know if you sent it to me or I sent it to you. I just found it. There was something about this guy's talking about sanding, like all the mistakes people make sanding. I made like all of them.
Oh, really?
And so yeah, I got my sanding game up now, so that's a lot better. Because I was doing a lot of stuff where I was just sanding, holding it with my thumb. Well, anything tough is gonna push
Yeah.
my thumb, so I'm not applying even pressure. So now I got where I take a handle of like an old file. It's got wood. It's actually oval for whatever reason. And now I'll wrap that little piece of sandpaper against it and rub it. And then in real fine places, I can crease it around the end of the file because it looks like a flathead screwdriver. So I can get that into places. Or I can wrap it this way around the flat head and have the metal flat. Well, it's spinning that way, so I'll do the underneath kind of stuff. But my sanding has gone way up. And then he had said something about, because our little packets go to like to 600 or something like that. He said, anything above 320. Nah, this is a waste of time. But you're supposed to get it to like about the 320, then do the sealer, let it soak in to rise any of the grain that's supposed to come up. Then do it with the 320 again. Then like our Yorkshire grit, and so on. So I've gotten really good. I'm having less of the problem where I was having the end grain look like a dry spot.
Mm-hmm.
It really has helped having like the sealer kind of bring that up.
So for a little bit of context, Tiger and I both got lathes in January.
December, yeah.
And there's a bunch of different people on YouTube. One of the guys, Nick Zametti,
Oh, he's hilarious.
he's from New Zealand, he's in the UK, and he always uses Yorkshire grit. And it's just this product, right? I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It's
So
like
it's not in the U.S. stores when you walk in the few stores that have wood products. So therefore, it's like, fairy dust kind of magical thing. And so I always wanted to use Yorkshire grit because all his stuff
'Cause
looked
he
good.
does.
As soon as he puts it on, it's like, wow, that's perfect. And he still goes beyond that. So I ordered 2 so that Jeremy could have one and I could have one. And I've used it and have seen the light and have just loved it. And I was waiting for Jeremy to experience that
Yeah,
joy.
most recently I've started making pins. And I've done 3 so far.
That's an episode I want to do with you. Teaching Tiger how to make a pen.
I can.
Okay.
Varying degree of success, but I can. I've made 3 so far. The first one I made in acrylic, which I don't know if the Yorkshire grit would be
I think they.
worthwhile on anything but wood. I don't know.
No, I think he's used it on there as like one of the first little things. I don't know.
But
So you poured or you bought a blank?
No, I bought the square blank.
Okay.
It was a blue color. I made the pin for my wife for her birthday. Blue was her favorite color. But I did get the micro mesh pads.
To go up
And
to
like 20,000 grit. And I don't. It's not really grit because it's not the same as sandpaper.
right.
But it's
that aluminum oxide little particles.
Yeah, it starts at 1,500, and there's like 12 or 15 of them, and the last one is 20,000. And what's crazy about that on acrylic, on wood, because I've made a few different things. The first 3 or 4, and you use water to lubricate them as it's doing this stuff, because it's spinning fast and it's gonna get hot, and whatever. The first 3 or 4, there's almost like a slurry that comes off. But about the 5th or 6th one, that slurry never shows up again, and it just really like starts to shine like glass. It's crazy, and you get to that 20,000 grit, and it's just everything is so smooth. And so I did the acrylic, which I just it was my first one, so like the angles aren't perfect because they're not supposed to be angles. They're supposed to be flat on the end where the pieces press together. There's a few rough spots from the sanding because anyway, it's my first pen. The second one I did wood, and didn't get the sizing quite right. It was still a little too big, like when the pocket clip.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the diameter's too far, the pocket clip's gonna be angled up, right? But that one came out really nice and smooth. I finished it with beeswax and then the micro mesh, and that turned out really nice. And the beeswax, when it's put on as a friction polish, it melts into the wood and darkens it a little bit and all that. And bees become your friend. All kinds of fun stuff happens. So, it's kind of a side joke, but a couple weekends or last weekend on Saturday, it was National Independent Bookstore Day.
Okay.
So Heather and I went to a couple different independent bookstores. We were walking into one over here, and there were just like all these bees. I'm like, what is going on? Looked over in the bush, and there was this huge swarm in the bush. And do I have a picture somewhere? Well, anyway, I'll show you later. I'll find it. But there's this huge swarm of bees in this bush. It's like, well, that's crazy. And I got up close. I'm taking pictures, and she's like, "Be careful." She's allergic to bees. She's like, "Be careful." I'm like, they're not like really aggressive or anything. So we went back in. Afterwards, when we were leaving, I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, it didn't seem like there was a hive there. I don't know what's going on. Well, I posted some pictures to a forum I'm in, and one guy was like, you should call a beekeeper and see, what's going on, if they need to move them or whatever. So I looked up the Harris County Beekeepers Association, and they have a call list, and it's split by areas of town. And some of them have silly names or whatever, like Joe the Bee Guy and stuff like that. So I called the first number for the area, like the Cypress area. The guy didn't answer. Called the second number, nobody answered. Called the third number, talked to this guy, and I was like, hey, in this parking lot, there's this big old mass of bees inside this bush, and you know, I don't know if like they should be moved or if you know the shopping center manager is gonna see it and like kill them or something, some
Right.
extermination thing or whatever. And what he told me was really interesting. He said, most likely, it's a section of the hive will break off, and it's a swarm. And around this time of the year, they'll start migrating. So they'll pick a central spot, and I guess they pick this bush in this parking lot, and they'll send worker bees out in all directions looking for a new spot for a hive. And he said, in about 2 days, they'll be gone. It'll be like they were never there. Like, oh, that's pretty interesting. Like, so they send all these drones out, and they come back, and they're like, oh, I found a spot. Come on, guys, let's go. And they'll go set up a new place. But anyway, I didn't have the pin with me with the beeswax finish, but I don't know, they might have followed me home if I did. I don't know. But anyway, with the beeswax finish and the micro mesh, it was so smooth and everything, and it was great. The third one I did, which I've got downstairs, I'll show you. It was a piece of Purple Heart.
Okay.
And when I turned it down, the inside of it, I don't know if there was something in there or something, but it turned out with some, still some of the purple and kind of red, and there's like a green section too. It looks really neat. But I sanded it down, did the micro mesh, and then did 3 coats of the thin super glue.
Okay.
And then went through all the micro mesh again, and it's so smooth and shiny, and I was like, I actually made this, you know, one of those. It's like, wow, I did this. But anyway, Tiger and I were talking before. He wants to do an episode where I show him how to make a pen, and we'll get together and do that. I've only made 3, so I'm still, you know, working out the details on what I'm doing. Like for instance, when you buy a drill press, it has a size on it. I purchased an 8-inch drill press. I didn't really know what that means. You know, a few years ago.
How far down it can go or something?
Oh, that's
The
kind of what I
bottom plate?
thought. But, you know, a few years ago, I designed something on paper using 2x4s, and then I bought the lumber and put it together, and it didn't fit. I'm like, why isn't this fitting it? Well, because a 2x4 isn't really 2 inches by 4 inches.
Right.
That's what it is, wet, and it dries and it shrinks.
I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I thought that was just like a rounding kind of thing.
No.
called it?
When it's
When it's first cut.
when it's first cut, it is 2 inches by 4 inches,
Huh.
or you know, 1x4, 2x4,
Right.
whatever, and they all shrink about the same amount because you'll end up with like
1 3/4.
1 3/4 by by 2.5 or whatever, or 3.5. But yeah, it's the wet size,
Okay.
which is crazy. I had no idea. So I designed an antenna stand and put it all together, and the last leg comes down. You know, I've got the pieces coming to the side and all
Mhm.
that, and I attached the first 3. Well, the fourth one was this far off from the base, and I'm like, how could it be this far off from the base? Everything is the size. And I measured, and I'm like, this isn't 2 inches wide. This isn't 4 inches, you know, this way. What is going on here? And Ken's actually the one that told me. He was like, well, yeah, 2x4 is not 2 inches by 4 inches. Like, dummy me.
I probably need to teach all my kids that at school. Hey, just so you know.
Yeah, right. So, but where did I got off track there?
Your 8-inch drill.
Oh yeah, so, right, 8-inch drill. I have no idea what that means. I'm thinking 8 inches sounds like a big deal. It was like the second size one from Harbor Freight or whatever, had a coupon, all excited, 8-inch drill. 8 inches is twice the distance from the center of the bit to the stand. So that you can put an 8-inch piece of something
Before you crash into something.
and reach the center of this piece.
Oh, okay.
It has a throw, which is the travel distance, of 2 inches. So you crank the thing down,
Right.
it comes down 2 inches. Well, most of the pin blanks are 2.5 inches. So I'm going down, and I'm like, wait, I'm at the end of this, and I still have wood to cut through. So and I looked it up online. I'm like, oh my God, this is like the 2x4s. I'm like, why doesn't this fit? It's an 8-inch drill press. What does this mean? And I looked it up online, and I found all kinds of woodworking forums and pin turning stuff, and this apparently comes up for everybody at some point where they're like, why doesn't my drill press fit? And the two different things I found a lot of people do is the first one I tried, I figured out on my own, went down to 2 inches, turned it off, raised the base so that the bit started in the hole, and then finished it out. Which worked, but the first time I turned it on with the bit in the hole was really scary.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not holding it by my hands or anything, but still,
I've
got to, But I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be scary. But the other thing a lot of people do, and I don't know why I didn't think about this, is they mount the blank in the chuck on the lathe, start it spinning, and have the drill chuck in the tailstock and just push it in.
Like we do with the...
like the Forstner bits.
Right, okay.
I'm like, that makes total sense. But, so anyway, what 3 pins in, I figured out that my drill press is too short, and and I've had the right tool all along to do it on the lathe. But, so there's, some interesting learning experiences. And I haven't done any live episodes.
In the garage?
I've done it from the garage, but not using any of the tools in the garage, because I want to make sure, I'm focused on...
And sound.
And you have to respect the tools, too. Can't be glancing over while pushing something through the bandsaw, and then you lose a thumb.
Speaking of bandsaws, since I still can't get a straight cut on mine...
Oh, man.
No, good. It's present receiving time again, that time of year for me.
Oh, yeah.
Father's Day, anniversary June, kind of thing. So I think I'm going to get the big 14-inch Rikon, the Pro, which I think is the Model 326, still 324, has some nice iron stuff instead of cast aluminum, I don't know. But I've looked at the little reviews, like on YouTube, and so it might need 2 people to get it out of the box and stand it on the stand. I think so. I might need your help.
Sure.
One day.
Now let me ask you this: what does the 14-inch part mean on the bandsaw?
That means
because I have a 10-inch bandsaw right now, and your current bandsaw is what?
Right. So if I have something and my blade's here and I want to cut it between it and the end of the saw, because the saw comes around from the inside to that piece, I got 14 inches. I got infinity in theory going the other way, but you only can cut something basically 14 inches, a piece 14 inches off of it. So it's probably like 13.5.
Kind of similar to the drill press.
Right. Where am I going to hit the machine?
For the drill press, it's the center, but for the bandsaw, yeah. Which I didn't know that either at the time, because I'm thinking 14 inches. That's like I've got a tall space, right? That's
because I got the little whatever brand we carry.
Ryobi,
Yeah, the Ryobi, and it said, oh, it's a 9-inch or 9.5 inch or 10 inch. It's like cool, but no, it's only like 3.5 inches.
Like 3.5
height,
inches
and everything I want to cut 4 inches or whatever.
Yeah, so if you've got a piece of oak that you want to put on the lathe, but you want to turn down the edges first, you've got to have whatever the height of the piece of wood is to go through there. Yeah, it's interesting.
And I never realized how important it is to find the real center of things.
Oh, man.
It really matters. So, but one thing I just did, second one was inspired by the first one. Because I like to go to Goodwill and look at things made out of wood. Cutting boards or whatever. Can I get it cheap enough that's worth it to invest in it to then cut it up and repurpose it, make lids or boxes or whatever. So I picked up some few cutting boards that way and some more stuff. But I picked up a set of 4 matching bowls. Maybe they're salad bowls or something, but they have straight sides, very, very cylinderish. And so I was able to get my calipers to get a precise measurement. And so I made the lid upside down because the top, of course, is flat. But the inside, you kind of want a recessed top and then a bigger circle that goes down into the lid so it doesn't slide left to right. So you want it to go in there. Well, I can cut precise circles if I do everything right. So I was able to, once I know that size, I can put any piece of wood on there just to adjust it for the thickness of the wood. And so for those 4 bowls, I cut 4 different kinds of wood and made it a top for each one. And then on some of them, I flipped them over and engraved something cool on the top. So I did those, but got to finish the tops because when I do it, since it's the inside, I cut that extra little circle to mount it on the chuck, so I can spin it and do everything I need to do with it. So I got some really nice lids that match these really shiny bowls that I didn't make, but as a set, it's a product from me, so they work out real nice. And I found tiger wood. There's actually a thing called tiger wood, which has a nice grain structure.
That's actually the second pin I made was out of tiger wood.
Okay, yeah, so I used that. So then I said, oh, I have those old bowls that have been outside that I've been using, like with the plants and stuff. They're just all jacked up. I said, let me see if there's one that's maybe salvageable so I can like sand it and refinish it, this way. And so, because 2 of them I saw cracks in it and whatever, but one I brought back to life. I'm just so proud of it. It just looks so nice.
So when you put that on the lathe, how did you mount it with the cold jaws, or did you have some?
I was able to wedge it in and cut a new little.
Oh, okay.
Is it the mortise or the tenon? What's the hole?
The hole is the mortise.
Mortise, and the thing you grab is the tenon.
Is the tenon.
Okay, so I cut a new mortise in it.
Some of the ones I've seen where they'll rough turn it and then let it dry for 8 months and then go back and turn it back true. To do the back side when it's already hollowed out, we'll take like a ball and grab it with the chuck and then press it up against the ball and use the tailstock to hold it in.
Now I made a little bowl that I'm gonna call a ring bowl. You can fit more than one ring in there for a bowl. And I'm gonna put a top, and then I learned from one of the guys that using that same kind of shape where you put the circle inside, but so that it can be there, so you use a sheet of paper and wedge it.
Yeah.
And the paper will hold it there. You just kind of get rid of the paper, and then you can turn it so it matches the diameter of the other one. So that's my goal for that, is to do a fancy top with a little grab kind of
little finial.
Yeah, finial. But not a long finial, just a functional finial.
Functional finial.
Yeah.
Nice. Actually,
and I have a bowl I bought that I'm gonna have to turn at your house. It's too big for mine, but it's
sure.
Yeah. And then I have another project. I have 2 future projects. There's this guy, some artist somewhere, because we go to this one place, antique store in Brenham, and he has ducks or gooses. Maybe it's a Canadian goose, but it's like a piece of log, and he's just sanded the bottom flat, and then sanded it kind of curved, and he paints that, and then he sands the front of the body, so it's wood, and you can see the grains and everything, and it blends it real nice into the bark. The bark's there, and then so that gives it kind of a weird feather kind of look, by the bark being like on the tail, but then the tail gets kind of sanded back down to a little thing. So it's basically sanding a log and then sanding. So I think that I can do most of that on the sander, or maybe my planer to take some off. So I want to try to make one of those ducks / swans. So I just got a piece of wood I can try that with. But then, because of the bonsai, now it's just up in New Braunfels / Canyon Lake, that area up there, on the side of the road, just through the fences, just the road, just start going places. And there's all this dried up, I don't know if it's cedar or what it is. It's that sun-bleached gray and all mangled looking and stuff like that. I want to do a day trip and just go get a truckload of that stuff. Because there's this trick, and I want to say it's Tanaki or something like that, for the bonsai people, where they'll take a stick and then kind of break it down and then cut like a groove in it, if it doesn't have a natural groove, but you cut a little groove in it, then you tie a young tree into that groove and let it shape and kind of grow into it, and then you put that like on the backside. So when you're looking at the thing, it has this old looking weird like stump that's the old wood, on a kind of like a young tree. So it keeps that small look, but has a big wide stump instead of just like a little stick at the bottom.
That's
so
neat.
I want to go stock up on what I can do that with, and then start selling those or something maybe. So it's like, hey, there's free stuff out there. I want to go get some.
Yeah.
But some of the big pieces, I can see slicing them on a big saw and making some really cool stuff.
Yeah, with 2.5 inches, you can't chop a slice out of a log.
Yeah. So those are two of the things I got upcoming. 20 days of work left. 29 of calendar days till school's out, and 33 till I go on the plane.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you got a little 4-day gap there to do stuff.
School gets out on Friday, let's fly out on Monday. Yeah. I need to practice loading my backpack up to see what all clothes fit. Got a new backpack, so.
Well, I went to there's a website. So actually, there's this guy on the Facebook wood turning group. Because I'm trying to think of his name, I can't think of it. But we've talked on in the group, and then we've talked individually through Messenger a few times, and he has a page where he makes pins and shows them, and people buy them and all this kind of stuff, and he talks about the pricing and shows all the different styles, and he's up in Oklahoma, just like right at the top of the northern border. And he was telling me, he's like...
Texas northern border, Oklahoma
no,
northern border?
Oklahoma to Kansas northern
Right.
border. And I mentioned something about I was going to Woodcraft and whatever, and he said, well, he's 2 hours away from his nearest Woodcraft in Oklahoma City, or Tulsa. It's like, oh man, that's rough, because we've got Rockwood,
Right.
we've got Woodcraft, we've got, all this stuff. But he told me he gets a lot of stuff from, there's this company, PENN, P-E-N-N, State Industries.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, so I went to their, turning the pins, using the mandrel. So the mandrel goes into the headstock, okay? And then it comes out, it's a thinner stick. And there's a bushing, and then the pin blank,
Right.
and then a bushing.
Like a barbecue skewer.
Right, and then a
Put
bushing, and a pin
everything
blank, and a
up.
bushing.
Okay.
And there's a knurled nut that goes on the end, and it compresses it down because everything is loose until it's compressed down between that nut and the actual mandrel piece that goes in the
Chuck.
yeah. So then the tailstock comes to the end to keep everything straight. And one of the problems I've read about online is with too much pressure from the tailstock, it'll be pushing so hard, it'll actually cause the mandrel to bend.
Mm.
And one of the pins I turned, the third one I turned, it only has one section. Well, I only had the bushings that came with it, and it
It bends while you're
there's-
turning it? While you're pushing that?
no,
Or is you
the
being too much
pressure from the
Okay.
tailstock. So so if the mandrel's this long and I've got a piece that's only this big, there's another little like lock nut that goes on there. So I had the lock nut, the small piece, and then the tightening nut. But the lock nut, I couldn't get it any tighter. I've got 2 pairs of pliers, and I'm locking it down, and there's like this little plastic ring inside. No, this is supposed to hold it. So I'm going along with the carbide chucks or turning tools, and every once in a while it would stall out. But because there was nothing behind the piece and that lock nut, and I couldn't get it any tighter, when it would stall, the mandrel was still spinning. So the centerpiece pressed against the lock nut and against the knurled nut would, and it's on grooves, right? Because it's a screwed nut. The whole thing would shift down until I was at the point where like it would catch and it's still spinning inside, but everything on it is stopped. So it's pushing this way because of the threads. And I'm like, what is going on here? I've got to figure something out. And it took a really long time because I'm like making these very light cuts and all this, trying to do it real soft so that it's not catching, and that was really annoying. But I went to Woodcraft and I was like, I took 2 mandrels up to the table and I was like, I have a question. I have this one. This is the problem I'm having. If I buy this one, which is an adjustable mandrel, would this work better for me? Because if I have a shorter piece, you loosen the mandrel, it slides up to just the length you need, you tighten it, and it's there's no distance for it to slip.
Okay.
And the guy said, well, that'll work, but what I use and what we don't sell is called a mandrel saver. I'm like, well, what's that? Well, instead of having the live center with the pointed tip on the end pressing against the mandrel and get too much pressure, eventually bending it, it's a different type of piece that goes in the tailstock with a thicker bearing, like twice as thick bearing. And it comes down to like a 7mm diameter hole, about the size of the mandrel. But the mandrel itself slides into the hole, and it presses up against the bearings, or not the bearings, the bushings. So it doesn't matter if you need this much space or this much space, it makes up that difference. So there's never anything to catch or anything to turn. I'm like, oh, well, this is pretty cool. But they didn't have them. And I was talking to this guy on the wood turning group.
Right.
And he was like, oh, yeah, I use one of these. And he orders stuff from Penn State Industries. So I went and checked out the website. So I got it for like $16. And it's not in yet. It's on its way.
Mm-hmm.
But since I was there, I was like, well, what other stuff do they have? I can just do one shipping order and all that. So I ordered a handful of different kits. There's a, what is it? It's an eyeglass holder, which is kind of interesting. So I don't wear glasses, but people that do, a lot of times they take them off and they fold them into their shirt. What this is, it's a metal piece with a magnet, and it snaps onto your shirt like from the backside like a name tag.
Mm-hmm.
And you can turn a piece to go in the center of it as like the artistic piece of it, and it's got a little loop, so when you take your glasses off, you put them on there. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool, you know. But that it uses the same style of turning for doing some different like jar tops or mirrors and things like that. It's like, oh, I can learn a different style, and this is something I can give, you know, Heather or whatever, somebody that wears glasses, right?
A
My
mirror,
mom or dad.
that's a good idea.
Yeah. So they have the mirror kits too. And they have some watch kits and like pocket watch kits with the chain and everything, and you turn around thing and the clock sits inside, and some neat kits. Well, a neighbor across the street, their daughter graduated college from TSU, and we're going to a party in a couple weeks. And we got the invitation, and Heather and I both at the same time, we were like, oh, I should make a pin, you know, because this is a new thing and we're doing whatever. And so I was trying to find, I looked up the school colors, it's maroon and gold, and I was trying to find some pin blank that's already made with these colors in it. And there was one that's like really cool maroon with these like gold lightning streaks in it. And it was neat, but it was a little expensive, especially if I'm like, I might screw it up. And then, you know, Then there was another one that was maroon with like these gold swirls, and it was like super cheap. But the reviews said it had a lot of chip out when they were turning it, so the material was not up to standards and whatever. I'm like, man, I want to find something nice. Well, PSI has a section of football team colors, and it's just a solid color blank. So there's, you know, blue and green and gold and maroon and all this. And I'm like, so I ordered 2 gold and 2 maroon.
Yeah.
And
so you can cut sections and put them next to each
yeah,
other?
I'm gonna cut sections and glue it all together, and end up with this, you know, blank that's gonna be 100% unique, not anything like it at all, and there'll be enough pieces that I can make 2. So if I screw one up, you know, like, oh, this is gonna be pretty fun. And they had other, like, all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, I don't vape, but apparently on the e-cig things, they have a drip tip, whatever that means. It's some piece of it. But there were kits for turning drip tips to make these custom. And what's neat about that website is you can look at it, and there's like the specifications of the kit. There's another tab for reviews, and then there's another tab for like questions, and there's another tab for what people have reported that they are selling these kits for. So you can buy the kit.
The finished product.
Yeah, the finished product. So you buy the kit for $6. You look on this tab. You know, people are turning it and selling them for $12 to $15 each. Or certain pin kits themselves are like, well, you know, this kit's like $6. This kit's $14. They're selling the $6 kit pin for, you know, $30, and the $14 kit pin for $100. You know, and stuff like this. It's really neat to see how the pricing and stuff works. And eventually, I might sell some stuff. Right now, it's a good excuse for gifts. You know, Mother's Day is coming up. I'm probably gonna make something. You know, things like that, birthdays. and all that. But it's been interesting. And there was a video I watched the other day where a guy he was making a pin blank, and he started with a big chunk of walnut, already cut to square, and he was using a table saw, and he knew the width of the kerf of the table saw blade, and he took some white oak, I think it was white oak, it doesn't matter, and cut some pieces that were the same width of his saw kerf. Then he took the pin blank and made some cuts with it, but didn't go all the way through.
Okay.
Like went almost to the end, and just made a whole bunch of different cuts, and was gluing in the white oak, and then made some other cuts and gluing in the white oak, and made some other cuts and gluing in the white oak.
And they were sticking out, and then he went and cut them. I think I saw that one.
And then he trimmed off the edges.
You made send a link or something, yeah.
Yeah, and then when he turned the pin, it looked really cool because it had all the brown and the white and all the like twists and turns and stuff, and it was really neat. So there's all kinds of fun stuff to play with. But, and you know, I do plan on doing some more. I say more. There's been one woodworking episode where I cut some boards and we put on the CNC machine. That's woodworking, right?
Yep.
I mean, there was some wood and we went from one state to another. But I do plan on doing some episodes soon. It'll definitely be pre-recorded and release stuff, you know, like that again, because the saws and everything and paying attention and all that. But I have a friend who was making a bed for his granddaughter for her wedding, and he's running across the table saw and just went right through the finger up to the knuckle.
That's why I gave you push sticks.
Well, yeah. Yeah, push sticks are great. I don't know why he didn't have any. But
he's old timer. It always never happened before.
No. Anyway, Tiger, thanks for coming out tonight.
It was fun.
You know, thank everybody for hanging out. We saw Stinger earlier in Ken, and a few other viewers stopped by, but we're rather quiet. If you like what we're doing here, you know, like and subscribe and leave some comments, questions, whatever, you know.
Did you make something that you got that working yet? A wireless?
Well, we've been working on that.
I haven't seen the last couple episodes.
Yeah.
I still need one finger.
Yeah.
I have an actuator that I got that's supposed to be like a door lock one.
Oh, yeah?
Or whatever. When you hit it, it changes.
That's cool.
So I want to see if I can make something that opens the garage door.
Let me give you the 2-minute overview of what's happened with this project. So you have a finger.
Right.
And it goes to the microcontroller.
Right.
But you want to control it from outside of your own home network.
Right.
That's the key
Wi-Fi.
point there.
Right.
Well, it connects to the Wi-Fi, but you've driven off. And you go, oh, wait a minute, Daddy, close the garage door, check the camera, the garage door's open, so you hit a button and it pushes. So you have to access it from outside of your network from your phone. To do that, there has to be some kind of control system. Like with my smart plugs, I've got some Tuya Smart something, and there's all the different ones, right? I've sort of accidentally
Go ahead.
created my own IoT control system for that, where you take a new ESP8266, download the firmware, connect it to your Wi-Fi, and then with your account on the system I'm building in the last few episodes, well, before some gaming stuff, you actually connect it up and then control it from your phone using not any other existing system like Tuya Smart or Google Home or Alexa or whatever. I'm sure there's ways to connect to existing systems, but I kind of got excited and have gone the extra step to build my own, which is why it's taken a little longer too, right?
Yeah.
But that's the fun of making stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like we were talking about, it's easy to lose focus. And well, are we going to have a power source to run this thing? Well, that's not the problem. The problem is the thing.
Yep.
Right.
What scenario? What is the really 9 out of 10 times scenario?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that being said, still working on the project. We've got the finger it's ready to 3D print, but I haven't printed it yet because I'm not sure how it's going
So you're
to connect
going
to the actual
back to just a finger as opposed to a piano
Well, I'm
playing
still doing
hand?
that too.
Or once the finger works, then you're gonna
Once the finger
multiply
works,
it out.
it expands.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And which that was going to work a little bit different, but using the system makes it easier to also, once the hand works, then I can be like, hey, Stinger, one of our faithful watchers, has a friend that's a performing musician up in New York, and he was like, oh, this is a neat project. Would I be able to play his piano from New York? I'm like, well, yeah, actually, when it's all done,
Yeah.
it could be, here, do a performance from another city, kind of thing. Neat stuff like that. So,
Right. Yeah, so you just gave me the idea that I could take a small, like a 2U socket, because they got the round ones now, add a, 110 to 3 volt converter kind of device.
yeah, the buck converter.
Right, and then I can have my little 3 volt finger on there, because it works when it gets power. When power comes on, it does its thing.
It actuates.
Right, and so I could turn it on and get it to push the button, and then I could turn it off and then turn it on again and get it to push it again to shut the door. Kind of. So I might be able to do it once I figure out how. So I'm gonna have this big old giant. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's what kind of motion do I want? So but there's possibilities now. So it's exciting.
Yeah, all kinds of fun stuff. And I did buy some of those sawn off
Okay.
things too to play with.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks again for hanging out. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, all that kind of fun stuff.
So we put in 2 hours though, right? Can we start a little late?
Oh yeah.
We gave everybody their money's worth. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna probably tell my professor, hey, I did a little thing about our project, so that way,
Yeah.
again, get some more brownie points.
Get some more, yeah. So anyway,
Dr. Crawford.
yeah, cool. Well, thanks for hanging out, and
You bet.
we'll see you next week.
Yep.